Hey guys, Brian and I've got Jordan in the lab today here at Storage Review, and we've been showing you some of the work we've done around this QNAP system. This is really cool because it supports graphics cards.
Yeah, it's essentially just a standard server motherboard in here. We've got a couple of PCI slots available for expansion. One of them is actually long enough to fit a GPU. We selected the A4000 because it's got the active cooling, which is required in here. We could have gone a little bigger with a double wide.
Could you fit a double wide in here?
I think we could. Yeah,
It'd be
it'd
snug,
be
but I
snug.
suppose it could be easily. It could be done, and there are additional power headers in there, so that could be done. We actually had initially wanted to put an A2 in here or an
Yeah.
L4, but that's no good because
But we don't have any way to get proper airflow across it. Those are passively cooled cards. Similar performance with the L4 for the A4000, but the A4000 does have the active blower cooler on it.
only trade-off is that we double up on the power envelope, more or less, right?
Yeah, the
Something.
L4 gets its slot power. It can do 70
Right.
watts for the similar performance. If you were to move to the A4000 ADA generation, you can do it on slot power. But as far as the A4000 is concerned, you do require almost double the power for the same.
All right, be that as it may, actually, none of the cards we discussed are on the compatibility list, so
Right.
everything we're doing is a little bit, not exactly
Off the rails?
off the rail. No, it's
Adjacently.
rail adjacent. But it does get to the point that you can do just about anything you want in the slots in the system as long as it can ID the card. This card, it does ID. And we've got a detailed paper I'll link to in the comments that walks through what we did, but at a high level. What are the details?
Yeah, it was really cool. Kevin and I worked together. He set up a VM for us on here. We ended up going with a Windows 11 VM.
So we use Virtualization Station on the QNAP, made a VM.
Made a VM, passed the GPU through to the VM directly, so the hypervisor didn't have anything to get in the way there. And from there, we just got our NVIDIA drivers installed. And then we found, around the time we were working on this, NVIDIA released Chat with RTX.
Okay, so Chat with RTX is really cool because that lets you bring a private ChatGPT-esque
Yeah,
thing to your organization. And while you could do it on a server or even a notebook, I guess,
Yep.
what's really neat is in the VM that Jordan and Kevin created, you could run this thing on your NAS. And I think this is so neat because you have it literally adjacent to your data.
yeah. So one of the interesting things about Chat with RTX, so you mentioned it's kind of like ChatGPT. Where ChatGPT is special is it's taking a GPT, a pre-trained large language
Right.
model. In our case, for our implementation, we were using Llama 2, 13 billion, and Mistral 7 billion. And then it applies a chatbot interface where you can actually interact with it because the model by itself can't do that. So you have to hang a lot of other components on
Right.
top of there.
But the glory with this, though, is the point-and-click simplicity.
Yes.
Which I think when you dovetail that, which has been daunting to say the least for organizations that want to adapt or adopt an AI model like this, that are worried about using the public GPTs and sharing corporate data, something like this solves a lot of problems.
It does because it brings in the third-party trick of Chat with RTX, and that's retrieval-augmented generation.
Okay, what does that even mean?
With RAG, retrieval-augmented generation, you can give it text documents, Word documents, PDFs, even YouTube URLs. It'll automatically go out and get the transcription, and then it'll bring that knowledge in with the model that you have selected, and you can actually interact and ask questions about the source material.
Okay, and so in this case, if we've got a NAS, what are some practical examples? If I'm a company and I want to look through all my technical documentation maybe
Yep.
without reading it?
So keeping in mind that Chat with RTX is still really early. It's, I think when we installed it, it was version 0.2.
0.2, yeah.
Yeah. It's more local to the VM that we had, so we're not necessarily giving that exact interface to everybody in the company, or in our case, in the office. But as this evolves, and because it's all open source, you could theoretically point that RAG into your NAS repository that maybe has a lot of PDF documents with different information in there, and it's able to work through and kind of process and index those.
So from a technical support standpoint, it could be very useful. Sales guys, I'm sure, would love having access to, having an automated way to access every pitch they've ever done. I mean, there's the number of of use cases here. Talk about the payload though too, because I said before it's point and click. You know, if you're thinking about putting this on a laptop or on a NAS or a server, it's not super lightweight though.
Right. It does require a fair amount of GPU memory to function, but before that, it is a 35 gigabyte download file that comes in a zip. So then you have to unzip that, so you need space for the uncompressed installer. And then the installer obviously has to install the multiple models from there. These models inherently are rather large, and all the other payloads that come with it. I know it does some Anaconda work around there when it's doing the installation, but the fact that it is literally 3 clicks to get a ChatGPT style interface up and going locally, that's the moneymaker.
Well,
for me.
It still blows my mind that we're talking about running. Now, to be fair, I'm going to say running this just on a NAS.
Yeah.
This is a beefy NAS, right? I mean, this has got a AMD something in here, right? I've already forgotten.
Yeah, it's a fairly decent EPIC processor.
Okay.
There's a fair amount of RAM.
Yeah, yes. There's a lot of RAM in this thing. It's an EPIC processor. The cheapest thing about this is actually the GPU.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Because even the drives, we've got these WD NVMe drives in there, the 15 terabyte drives. Those dudes are probably $1,700 a pop. So yes, this is the cheapest core component of the whole thing. Maybe a little more expensive than the CPU. Either way, irrelevant. So, but when I say it'll run just on a NAS, it's still really cool, even if our NAS is a little overpowered for what we're doing here.
And so kind of thinking about like the forward-looking side of this, where we're still really early with the software, and maybe eventually we'll be able to get kind of versioning, or like I said, it's open source, so you can do modifications. Like our modification of opening it up to the whole office was just straightforward in editing some Python files. As you could kind of grow into it, it provides a decent platform to be able to use it. Yeah, so let's get this guy put back up, hook it back up to the network, fire up the VM, and we'll go ahead and get it fired up and take a look at the interface.
All right. All right, so we've fired the QNAP back up. We're going to a screen share now with Jordan, who's taking a look at it, and walk us through what we're looking at exactly here.
So this is the Chat with RTX interface. Anybody who's used ChatGPT will be very familiar with this style of layout, but we've got a new dataset folder up here. If we were running locally on the VM, we'd be able to kind of go through the folder paths or pick different files or anything, but I went ahead and picked a YouTube URL. We gave it one of our recent videos. We said we're only going to look at one video. You can actually give it a whole playlist, I think of up to about 25 videos.
Right.
So if you have a very educational playlist and you want summaries or you have specific questions about things, like I have a playlist for setting up Active Directory, and I gave it to it one night.
That sounds like the most awful playlist that could ever be created.
Yes.
Do you hate yourself?
No, it was a fantastic resource for a long time, but if I needed a very specific piece of configuration information that I used out of there, I had to go scan through hours of video and remember which part it was in. Now I can give it the playlist and I can just ask it a question.
So that's interesting. So in addition to just having access to the data on our NAS, in this case, or on your laptop, if you install this locally, public sources of data like YouTube are available too.
And it is pulling those in local. It's not going external to the machine for that information. So we've got this YouTube video in here. This is one of our recent videos, so we can ask it, what is the video about? And it'll take a second to think about it. It'll process its information. It's using the retrieval augmentation.
Oh, I'm afraid it's going to judge me.
Well, good thing is you're not in this video.
Even better than I can't be made fun of by robot overlords.
Yep.
Oh, it's Vince's Noctua
video.
Okay. So it put together a pretty reasonable summary.
Yep.
And that's more than just the description that we had in there. It's not just shortcutting by looking at the description.
Right. So it's looking at the total context of the transcript of the video. So it's important to understand it's not looking at what's necessarily being shown, but if there's a very information-heavy video with a lot of context, it's looking at that.
So Vince was heavily ridiculed for his ponytail in this video in the comments.
It's not aware of his ponytail.
See, that's the worst part of that you've said, is that the most engaging part of that video wasn't the Noctua fans, it was Vince's hair, yet the Chat with RTX has no idea about his hair.
Correct.
Could we ask to be sure?
We can.
What would we ask?
How is this hair?
When Vince comes to edit this
He's
video,
gonna, oh,
he's
these
gonna-
guys are assholes right over our heads. Yeah, see, we don't have any information on that, so it's not able to help us with that. But-
Okay. The thing I struggle with the videos, or not struggle, but it's a pain sometimes, especially when like you make a video and I don't want to watch it, and I want to know like if it can write a description for me, or what keywords we should use, or some of the marketing stuff like that. And a lot of this too is about the prompts to make sure that you're forming questions well. I think that it's bizarre that we live in a world where prompt writer is a job.
Yeah, to an extent, right? Being able to interact with and understand the models on a,
What is that?
it's trying to do, that's corruption and what it's producing. I think it was trying to do some emojis or some
Oh, okay.
characters. Yeah, it's trying to put in emojis here.
Okay, so it's not working.
And that could be, it might be coming out in the model, but getting transferred into the interface through how this interface is set up in the web browser. It might not be doing it. This is actually not a terrible YouTube video description, but it's a good start, especially to help with people finding the video and knowing what it's about.
Right. Huh. Have it do some keywords. Like, give me 20 keywords for this thing. So this is always interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, normally we pick through and we'll do servers and fans and computers. Let's see what it comes up with.
Yep. So keeping in mind that it's looking through the entire transcript for the video.
Well,
and
I don't know
the
if we're-
title.
Nocto fans
yep.
makes sense. I'm not sure about the shish. YPC, home office rack. I mean, so far,
And this is only the Llama 2 13 billion model. This is before we start bringing in either larger parameter or better optimized models. We
Right.
can actually switch our model here as soon as it's done and perform this exercise again with a different model.
and you would expect moderately different results.
Yeah, and depending on the task, they're tuned for two slightly different things.
So how do people figure that part out? Does NVIDIA document that very well in terms of models that are supported and what they're good for?
Right now, the documentation is a little light from NVIDIA officially.
Okay.
A lot of the stuff that you can find out there in different forums or GitHubs or knowledge articles, I'm not going to call it necessarily tribal knowledge because it is open and people are willing to share it.
Right.
But the knowledge is out there. Finding it, is going to be, find an expert, somebody who knows these things.
Okay.
So we're using the Mistral 7 billion, so this model performs a little bit faster.
It is a lot faster.
yeah.
Oh, because it's got a smaller data set, though?
It's a smaller model. It's only a 7 billion parameter, but it's also significantly more optimized. I really like what these guys have been doing with this project, and I think they'll overtake the #1 spot here soon.
So you've showed two different models here. Do those come pre-bundled, or are there more available?
Yep. So it's coming with the Mistral 7 billion and the Llama 2 13 billion, both on the integer 4 precision. That comes pre-bundled with it, so you've got those two to select from. Your results may vary between model. If you're working on different stuff that you need factual information out of, it might be worth checking both of them.
Okay.
Do your own research, look at both projects. You can kind of get to see what each one is ideal for.
The key takeaway, though, has got to be that having a private chat bot,
Even you could install.
how dare you, having a private chat bot that even I could install, ooh, against your own company's internal data. Like,
Yeah.
this is the big thing.
Right.
If you want ChatGPT to go write you a poem, then go use the public-facing ChatGPT.
Yep.
It's fine. If you want to analyze your company data or try to gain some insights from all of your resources, especially unstructured data like you would find on a share on a QNAP NAS,
Yep.
like this is, I'm not quite sure game changer is the right word, but this is something really approachable that brings AI to organizations that to this point haven't been kept out of it, but haven't really been able to embrace it either.
The barrier to entry has certainly been lowered a lot, which I
Right.
think is a really good thing because the more people who have access to these tools, the better productive that they can be.
And we're using an A4000. You could do it on something even a little smaller than that too, right?
Yeah, this laptop actually has a A4000 mobile GPU in it.
And that
I've
works?
tested it on here and it works fine.
Okay. So if you're not playing with it but curious, it's very, very easy to check this out. NVIDIA's chat with RTX is really compelling. We ran it on a VM in a NAS. Again, I'll link to that in the description, and we walk through how to do that, how to get set up. Yeah, I mean, this is cool stuff, and a really neat value proposition from NVIDIA. But the fact that they made it so easy and that it can run on so many things, I think, really brings the value to small businesses everywhere.
Yep.
All right, check out the paper to learn more. Hit our Discord to keep in touch with us on this and all the other projects we have going on at any given time.